Welcome to Keeping Up with Our Community, a podcast for and about Romeo Community Schools. Each week, we will invite different guests to share insights about some unique aspects of our schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, my name is Marianne Brush, and I'm the Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools. It is my pleasure to introduce episode 25 of the Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast. In today's episode, we will hear from 3 teachers who are new to Romeo Community Schools this year and are here to share their experiences with us. I will now turn it over to Superintendent Dr. Todd Robinson to host this episode, beginning with introducing our guests.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. No longer rookies. You guys are now veterans in accomplishing your first year. So our vision for this podcast, we began discussing it about a month ago, and I said, all right, well, let's get a list of, our folks who, are completing their first year with us in the school district. And be proud that with a little bit of conversation with your administrators and a little bit of insight from me, you are the chosen ones. And so I'm pleased to just introduce to the community, we have an elementary, middle school, and high school representative. And the other thing I would clarify is we had some new teachers this year to Romeo, but they were not necessarily in their first year of teaching. So the podcast is really designed to say, I met with you all individually, before you actually got offered the job, and you had a lot of experience and thoughts about what it would be. And now you've lived in the trenches for a year, and there might be some lessons learned. So that's really designed. So why don't we start with our elementary. Meredith, introduce yourself.
All right. My name's Meredith Griffin. I'm at Hevel Elementary, and I teach 3rd grade.
3rd grade, our elementary rep. And our middle school rep?
My name is Karen Saavedra. I'm at the middle school, and I teach Spanish 1 at the middle school with just 8th graders.
All right.
And my name is Valia Georgis. I am at Romeo High School, and I teach world history and English.
All right. Well, welcome, ladies. Thanks for giving some time today. So I think it would be appropriate for us to maybe just start with that kind of infamous interview question that, depending on how many times you interviewed and how many districts before you landed here in Romeo, you knew that question was coming. So I think for our listeners, it'd be good, if we just went back and just each of you talked briefly about, kind of why and when, those decision points happened when you knew you wanted to be a teacher. So we'll start at the top.
Okay. So I chose to become a teacher because I've been working with the youth for a long time, even before I was a teacher. And I love seeing how students have grown. And I kind of love looking back and seeing students come up to me and say, oh, I learned this from you. You helped me with this. So I wanted that to be something that I, heard or saw for the rest of my life. So I joined teaching so that I could be with students and have relationships, and kind of I learn from them as much as they learn from me, so that when they grow up, I want to see them again and they say like, hey, you helped me with this and you taught me this and I really appreciate it and it's made my life better in this way. So I think for me, that's like the most rewarding part and why I chose to become a teacher.
Did you ever debate like, I'm not sure what level, or did you know it was high school right from the beginning?
I felt like I always wanted high school because I could have those conversations with students that are kind of more life-based, or like, I need help with this, or I don't know what to do about this, as opposed to kind of at the lower level. So I always kind of knew it was high school.
Vision to work with older kids. How about the middle school?
I decided to be a teacher because I never had a teacher that was a bilingual teacher, and I felt like kids just needed to have a teacher that kind of look up to. And I know it's a lot to say, like, to look up to a teacher, but just having a bilingual teacher, I feel like there's not many teachers that have like Spanish as their first language and then English as their second language. So that's why I decided to be a teacher.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. So they didn't want to have to teach kids to read, Meredith. They wanted
Okay.
you to take care of that so then they could
For
benefit.
trusting you.
Got it. That's a lot
All
of
on
pressure.
you.
All right. My story's a bit odd. I was a terrible student. I almost flunked out of high school, failed my first year of college, every single class, not two, like all of them. So then I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've always loved kids, but I decided to just go somewhere. So I moved to Arizona. I worked for the Forest Service a little bit there. And then I moved to Oregon, and I was on a chainsaw crew cutting down trees. And there was an opportunity to make more money where we took middle schoolers from a nearby reservation out with us into the field to build hiking trails and maintain hiking trails and just kind of teach them about the ecosystem around them. And I was like, oh, more money. Sweet. And then we got out there and I adored them. I loved making connections with them. I loved helping them figure out like what they wanted to do when they grew up and like talking about their lives and their experience. And I was like, oh, I could do this for a living. So then I came back home to Michigan, went to school, and, I think my big why is trying to help kids find their why they care about learning and why they want to learn new things.
That's an interesting thing because I think sometimes the public has this perception that all teachers were like really good students. And I think sometimes we have teachers who school didn't necessarily come easy for them. I used to, when I was a middle school principal, I always found that like our math teachers that like did the best at teaching pre-algebra, to middle school kids had some kind of a math struggle in their journey, and they just had the ability to make things easier for kids to understand. Because like if calculus comes easy to you, you just can't understand people like me who algebra 1 didn't connect.
Yeah.
And so you accepted a position with our district, which I will tell you personally, I'm so pleased that each of you did, and reports are certainly that we made the right decision. So congratulations and thank you in one. And so, we're probably like, maybe about a year ago, and you said yes, and you signed the contract, and you had some, you had some goals, maybe you had some worries, but there were some things that were kind of going to be a priority to you. So what was your focus as you prepared to start the school year, at least from what you remember? Meredith, why don't you go first?
Okay. Communication with parents was a big worry for me. We're so young, and like I know they can tell we're so young, and I was so concerned that they wouldn't take me seriously or wouldn't like what I had to say because I'm so young. That completely disappeared when I met all the parents at Meet the Teacher Night. I have a great class with great parents. They're all super nice and accepting. I was really concerned at being a good math teacher. I was so bad at math. I took algebra 3 times in college. It took me 3 times to
I
pass.
literally did not say that. That wasn't a loaded comment by me.
It's okay. And I was like studying our math curriculum, like, okay, I'm gonna be good at this. I'm gonna make sure they understand it. And I've actually found that I'm a way better math teacher than I am a language arts teacher, because language arts comes so easy to me, and math, I can really break it down to that first step.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Anything similar, or what's unique?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I was worried about kids actually being like not respecting me just because I am so young, and I am probably the youngest one in the building with teachers. So yeah, I agree with that. I felt like we were not going to be respected with students. But I also, by student teaching experience, I was at a high school, and then I like dropped down to 8th grade, like went lower in grade level. So I also was worried about that, like the differences with high school and middle school. And it is very different, but I think I made the best choice.
Yeah.
I think I made a good choice. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember?
So I think for me, it was 2 things. The first one was the parents thing again, because I am so young and I also look very young. I look like my students. So it's kind of like, even the first day, they were like, wait, she's the teacher? And I'm like, yes, hi, everyone. So that was number 1. And the number 2 for me with high school was the pacing of the curriculum. I had no idea like what to expect when it comes to how long do I teach something for? Do I even teach this? Do I skip this? I need to learn the standards because I need to reach all the standards. So I was super worried about what do I teach? How do I teach it? And when do I teach it? But thankfully, like with the way Romeo has it set up where we meet with teachers of our same subject, that really helped me. And I think that was, I know we're going to talk about it later, but that was like the biggest thing for me this year that really made me happy was the fact that I could work with the teachers of the same subject, and they taught me the pacing, they taught me the curriculum, and they taught me what to skip, what to focus on, what to skim over. So I think that was my biggest thing coming into it.
Yeah. We throw a little wrench in that at the high school with the block and, all of that. But there is some, I guess I would say, kind of behind the scenes things with the block, like you refer to, in terms of beneficial time for teachers to talk about it. The curriculum and that. So, were there any moments of apprehension or doubt in the first few months on the job?
Yes.
For sure.
So tell us about that.
So, I think in the first maybe few weeks when I was teaching, every time that I would speak and talk to my kids about just what we're learning, in my head, it's always, are they remembering it? Are they understanding it? Are they learning? Am I doing it the right way? So I think like my biggest worry was leading up to that first test when they were about to take it. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to fail.
Yeah.
They're all because I did not do a good job at teaching it. Thankfully, they did not all fail. And that kind of eased me. But I think my biggest worry was that, are they learning? And it was kind of like that imposter syndrome of, am I a good teacher? Am I doing a good job? Am I doing well for my students? Because that was my biggest thing. So I would just focus all my energy on that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I felt like we like doubt ourselves a little more than we should, and I feel like we are doing a good job, and it shows not just with like the test scores or their grades that they have, but just like having a conversation with them. I'm a Spanish teacher, and they just come up to me, like students come up to me and just talk to me in Spanish, and that just makes me feel really good. But
Well, I have to remember that you get to give a shout out in Spanish before we're done. I don't forget that. Meredith, how about you? Any apprehension or doubts in the first couple months?
My apprehension and doubts came with all the IEP meetings and the IRIPs and all the acronyms and trying to like make sure all my stuff was sorted and sent to the right people. I was like, oh, am I too scatterbrained for this job? Like, is this not going to work for me? But you use your mentor teachers, you get it figured out, and you get a little bit more organized. But yeah, mine came with all those meetings.
Yeah. We do really well with acronyms.
Yeah.
We have educational jargon. We're in the thick of the hiring season, as we record this. And I was just, telling one of our administrators the other day, I said, we sit on our side of the interview table, if you will, and we assume that the university prep programs are, they're teaching kids how to, young people how to be teachers, but yet they don't necessarily always infuse the current jargon, and so, and maybe in some cases, some of those professors, no knock on professors, but like, it's been a while since some of them have actually been in the trenches. And so, we've scaled, wow, diversity, equity, inclusion, and social emotional learning, and MTSS, and all these acronyms start coming out, IEPT teams, and all of that. I remember IEPs. I don't know what the T is, and so I'm respectful of that.
I can definitely relate to that because I didn't learn any of that until I started substitute teaching myself.
Yeah.
Like I learned IEP and 504 just substitute teaching. I didn't get to learn it in college up until my senior year during my student teaching. Just like in the seminar classes. And I always thought, where was this beforehand? Why didn't I learn this beforehand? Because this is important to know. Students have IEPs and 504s that we need to accommodate for. And yet I wasn't exposed to it in college up until my senior year. So I definitely see that.
You really learn the most student teaching. Like, I don't think any class can prepare you the way student teaching does.
There's for sure.
I know, it's like a whole new ball game as soon as you get in there.
Even with student teaching, having like someone else in the room.
Yeah.
Like, even just coming out of student teaching your first year is so different than just student teaching because you have someone else in the room with you.
Yes.
So the goal is not to discourage potential teacher candidates. So the disclaimer.
It's amazing. Join the field.
Yes. But I do think there might be some advice in there. Like you never know. We could have someone listen to this who's going into those kind of field placements before the formal student teaching. And it's like, I almost feel like, lean in and absorb some of the jargon, the casual conversations out of just observing, whatever teacher you're observing teach, like it's all the stuff that happens on the side that you're talking about, was a challenge for you because there's paperwork coming, there's meetings to be had, and you certainly all want to do things right. So,
And advice for incoming teachers: when you're student teaching, ask questions. Don't feel like you're going to look stupid. Because there's so many things I should have asked that I had to now ask my first year teaching, which is still fine. But ask as many questions as you can in those field placements and when you're student teaching.
Yeah. So, Karen, how about a defining moment or time in your first year here where you knew you were in the right place?
I'm going back to the personal connections. I feel like I've made so many connections with my students, and just having those, even if it's not talking about Spanish, just talking about something personal. They did good on their baseball game. They won their basketball game. Just those personal connections. I feel like that defines like the best moment pretty much. Yeah. Like those are the moments that I look forward to.
Yeah. Belia, how about you?
Well, of course, the personal relationships is always like the biggest pro. Even when you're having the worst day, just a conversation with a student that just brings up your day. But I think I knew that I picked Romeo as the right place specifically was because of the different academies at the high school. Even in college, I always had this like idea, and Meredith kind of talks about it, like helping students understand their why. What do you want to do after high school? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to go into trade? So I think Romeo High School does an amazing job at kind of helping them explore different fields, and students are way more exposed to it. And having like conversations with students, they know way more about what they want to do after high school as opposed to other teens that I've talked to at different districts because they are not exposed to it as much. So I knew I was in the right place when students kind of had an idea of what they wanted to do after high school, even if it ends up changing, but they knew there was a wide selection of things to do.
Yeah. So when we talk about the Academy's model bringing more relevance to kids in the classroom across all their subject areas, you would affirm that.
Oh yeah,
that's
for
true?
sure. Yeah, I would always talk to my students about what do you want to do after high school, and they would tell me, and then we would talk about different college majors or maybe different options that they could go to. So I definitely think the Academy model is doing a very good job at the high school for sure.
Meredith?
Sounds like I could have used that in high school.
Yeah, me too.
How about I don't know if it's one moment or just a time in this first year where you knew you were in the right place.
Mine was for teaching, mine was in November. And it doesn't even have to do with me being in the classroom, but I was driving to work and I was listening to a podcast about someone who's no longer in the corporate world talking about how much they dreaded going to work every day. And I've had like a couple office jobs, and that's how I felt every single day. And I was like, oh my God, I don't dread going into work at all. I don't even get the Sunday scaries. Like I am like happy when I go to work every day and like making that same drive every day. I was like, this is awesome that I don't feel the way I used to when I used to have to go into an office. It's so nice not to hate 5 days out of the week, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, I can agree to that. I worked in the medical field, I've worked in the business field, and I've dreaded going to work in every other field except education.
Yes.
And you're right, I don't get the Sunday scaries. Even if I feel like I'm not prepared, I know eventually I'm going to get it. I just love going to work and seeing my students. So it's great.
Yeah, I agree as well. And I have a long drive too, so at 30
me
minutes,
too.
like
Me too.
Me too.
I still enjoy my drive to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I sense affirmation that you've all realized kids need you, but they also bring things to you that affirm, it's hard. This is hard work, and I'm not sure the outside world ever will fully understand that or get it. And, at this point in time in my career, I just say I'm not really worried about it. We need to hunker down as a profession and as colleagues in a district and make sure we take care of each other. But I used to always call it like there's these little paychecks from the heart where kids give you in passing and you never even expected it. And sometimes the busyness of the day, you really don't even reflect. I think, this is going to air sometime when you guys are enjoying some time off in the summer. But, as we come up to the very end of the school year, it's probably maybe initially starting maybe a little bit more at the high school because seniors, are finishing up. But like you're going to get those emails, those cards, those thank yous from kids, and that's just like that. Fill your bucket up with that because that's stuff that's special. And if they are artifacts, save them because when you're having a rough day, or sometimes in the future you might question like, oh Lord. you can go back and pull some of those things out and make you remember.
Yeah.
So you're a year under your belt and that. How about a couple of things you learned this year that you don't think you could have ever, really fully known without actually doing the job?
Oh, God.
I was gonna say on an elementary level, you've always heard about setting expectations for your students, but like I've found that I never thought I'd have to do, and this isn't a knock at the kids. I have great students, but setting expectations before every single activity is like the best classroom management strategy of all time. And it's just a simple, we're not doing flips on the carpet when we're doing this, or we're not throwing pencils, like just saying stuff we're not going to do and what we're expected to do before, again, every single activity. I don't have to redirect them at all during the activity.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I can kind of go with that on the high school level too. For me, I think setting boundaries early on in the year would have been a big game changer for me. I did set some boundaries, but I think just not knowing going into it, I didn't know there were certain boundaries that I didn't want to be crossed, and I figured it out throughout the year. And I'm like, next year, I'm definitely changing that.
Yeah.
Talking about it early on in the year. So I think I would have never known until I started working at what type of things I didn't like in the classroom, or I did like in the classroom, or what I expected, and kind of communicating that more with the students.
So hitting the ground in year 2.
Yes.
There's a few things that are going to be
There's a
little
list.
different.
There's a list.
Yes. And how would you have ever really known that? Because even
Exactly, yeah.
assuming a classroom in your student teaching
Right.
either semester really, but certainly in the second half of the year, which when it traditionally happens,
Yeah,
you assume some of those classroom expectations
for sure.
for for your mentor teacher.
And just with different districts and different policies. So I came from I student taught a different district, so coming in there was different policies, and I didn't know how to enforce that early on. So next year going in, I know exactly what to do.
Well,
So-
I think you want to please, you want kids
Yeah.
to like you, but they'll take advantage.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And,
Yeah.
sometimes just out of the sheer desire to have fun all day long.
Flipping on the carpet
Yeah.
is a fun time.
Yeah.
We this is our first year teaching when we did student teaching, but with boundaries, I feel like student teaching, you couldn't really set your own boundaries because you're a guest in the classroom
Mhm.
and you don't want to overstep with the mentor teacher that you have. So I feel like, I agree. Just setting your own boundaries and what you want to do as well. But I was going to say with curriculum and structure, even though kids complain about having structure, they like it. They really do like their structure. Every time they come into my classroom, they have bell work. They complain about bell work every single day, but they know if they don't have a bell work one day, something's off.
Yeah.
So yeah, just structure in the classroom. I feel like that was
That's such a middle level adolescent thing is they want to test every boundary,
Yes.
but yet they still want the
They
comfort
still-
of
yeah.
structure. And I want my independence, but wait a minute, don't leave me
right.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That is a wonderful observation. So, what would you tell yourself if you could go back a year ago about starting a career in teaching? Ultimately, advice you would have for any teacher that's right in that place now, preparing to start their first, job in the fall. So, what would you tell your former self, if you could, leading into your first year in teaching?
I kind of did this. So I guess what I would tell first year teachers is reach out to your administrators and see if you can come in before the school year ends and kind of meet the staff and see what the energy is of the building and stuff like that. And then early on in the year, make relationships with your coworkers, especially people who teach the same subject as you, because then they could really, really help you out in the long run. And just being with this, I think just being with the staff and knowing the people around you helps so much, because then you know who to go to when you are struggling or have questions about certain things. So definitely make friends with your staff and your coworkers.
I think someone kind of hinted to that. It's you don't want to admit you need help because you want people to think I got this.
Yeah.
So build those relationships because that's great advice. How about you?
I would say that everything's going to be okay because I was worried before starting. I feel like everyone is. But yeah, I was worried. And also that you can ask your staff member, anyone in your building or even in other buildings that have reached out to the high school as well. Just you can ask them anything and you're not going to bother them. It's not anything that they're annoyed that you're asking. they're fine. They'll ask or they'll answer any questions because they've been where you were. So
Yeah, so sometimes you're worried about being a burden, but
Yes.
yet, you
Yeah.
know, it isn't necessarily that.
right.
Yeah. I talk about feeding the profession too, in terms of hiring young people, but also within the building. Like we have an obligation to support new teachers to success because that makes our district more successful,
Yeah.
you know, and improves student learning. So how about you?
I have two. On a less serious note, elementary school teachers, don't worry about how your classroom looks. Focus more on the organization aspect, where stuff's going to go, a filing cabinet. I need one of those. I have stacks of papers everywhere, and like I spent so much time making my room look pretty, and now it looks unpretty because there's just stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
So spend time on organization. And then my second one is on a more serious note, take time to reflect after each lesson on what went well and what you need to change for next time. I feel like it's so easy to be like, well, now it's prep time and I got to do this, and then I got to grade this, and I got to print these off, and I got to send that home. But like, the most important thing is that, you know, your instruction is going well and the students are learning from your instruction. So take time to reflect after every subject, or at least after every day.
Yeah.
Because some of those simple notes or something like that, that lesson's coming up again next year.
Exactly.
And you might not recall all of that with everything you've encountered.
I reflect with like every hour. I
Yeah,
feel like
me
'cause I
too.
teach Spanish 1 all hours, so throughout the whole day. So even like my second hour, I will do something and it just didn't work out. So my next hour, I'm going to switch it a little bit and try it differently. If that doesn't work out, I'll just do something different. So I feel like, yeah, reflecting after every time you teach something.
That's
My seventh
great.
and eighth hour was always get the best lessons.
Yeah.
Because it's at the end of the day, and I've done it so many times.
So change on the fly. So there's a theme here of flexibility.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that happens a little bit more, you know, for secondary when you're
Yeah.
seeing multiple different groups of kids.
Yeah.
But I think there's some, you know, there's some repetitive nature to elementary instruction that, you know, I'm coming back to this tomorrow and we're going to tweak things a little.
Yeah. My last math center also gets the best math lesson ever.
And even if you admit to students that, like, you know, maybe yesterday, let's try this again. Like, yesterday
Yeah.
it didn't work out so well. Like, let's redo it and see if it works out better and if you learn something. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Loaded question. But anything special about the opportunity to actually do your calling, but do it here in Romeo?
The podcast.
This is why I chose the district.
Yeah. Been
This
waiting.
here.
But I guess just I feel like the camaraderie, I think is the right word, between the teachers, at least in my building, is amazing. I just get along with literally everybody in my hallway at the minimum, and I have so many like staff friends throughout the building, and that has been a great opportunity for me because not every building has that. So it's great to have that here. It just makes every day so much easier.
Yeah. Karen?
I would say, yeah, like the community base, even like with students as well. Like, I feel like those kids have been together since like kindergarten, and that I love that community base that we have in Romeo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, mine was definitely the community too. Like I didn't go to Romeo, but I grew up in Romeo. And my neighbors went to Romeo, and they just seemed to like love their school.
Yeah, it's like
And
a
they-
small town.
Yeah, it is a
Small town movie.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's like a small town movie.
Yeah.
It's like Friday Night Lights, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Anything you took on like that like you're excited about or like you never would have thought, like because someone's asked you to, hey, be a part of this, or could be in the classroom, could be something out of the classroom, but opportunities or challenges that you took on that you wouldn't have expected?
I know we just actually recorded a podcast about this, but I've joined the Kindness Club at Hevel. That's been really fun. I've also joined a cornhole league. That's been fun. And I've coached girls on the run. So
Awesome.
yes, I love getting involved with this. The school I'm in is great. Everyone's super inclusive and fun.
I am the co-sponsor for the class of 2026. So as they continue to grow up, I'll kind of be following them along with like their prom when they get to senior year. So, and I teach those students right now. So it's going to be really nice, like seeing them grow up and, you know, graduate. So it's been really fun, like doing like the fundraisers and all of that with them. So
Yeah.
it's great.
I recall being back in the gym and you inherited some.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. So
Yeah.
next year, me and another first-year teacher, Vaso Sarmakipis, we are going to start doing the pep rallies, kind of being the host because Kendra Knobloch is retiring.
Yeah.
So we're going to be hyping up the pep rallies in the high school. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great, Karen.
Well, I'm gonna do dodgeball tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow. That's very out of my comfort zone. Kids were like really motivating me to do it.
Yeah.
So I joined dodgeball for tomorrow's staff team.
Oh, the school-wide, the infamous
School-wide,
Romeo Middle
yes.
School school-wide dodgeball tournament.
We're doing an inflatable costume bounce house race as well. So I will be participating in
What's your
this.
costume?
I think I'm the dinosaur.
Nice.
The inflatable dinosaur.
Fun.
It's the best one.
Yes, of course.
How about, you never know who from our staff, even potentially maybe even I suppose students might listen to this, but I felt like I needed to, as we wrap this up, like just offer the opportunity, like, is there any colleague shout outs or just thank yous that you would want to give? And I'm sure there's countless people, but it never fails in this profession. You just get that unique connection to someone that you know has made a significant difference in your first year.
Can I do 4?
All right.
Okay. It's 4 people I work closely with every day. Jody Stramersh is my mentor teacher. I could not have gotten through this year without Jody. She's so patient and so kind. And, you know, every day, if I'm having a rough day, I think about how I want to be like Jody when I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
And same with Jamie Nuttall. She's my other 3rd grade teacher. We actually share a wall. We share a lot of laughs. I feel like every time I talk to Jamie, my mood is just boosted. Wendy Stabley, the sweetest person on planet Earth. I love working closely with Wendy and getting to talk with her every day. And then Nikki Herman has really made me a better math teacher, and I appreciate all her advice and help.
There you go.
I also have 4, if you don't mind. The first one is Kim Brulman. She is my mentor. She's amazing. She's always the person I go to when I'm confused and overwhelmed, and she's there to offer the veteran advice. My second one is Vaso Sarmakipis. She's also a first-year teacher. Me and her kind of being on the same level, and we can just rant to each other and talk to each other about the day, and we just understand because we're both going through the same thing. The next one is Catherine Ellerbrock. She's a new teacher here, like this semester, and she is just so amazing. She has taught me so many things about how I can teach world history and taught me like just amazing when it comes to pacing. So just love her. And then the last one is actually Amber Fountain, the BI principal, academy principal. She makes my day every morning. She's always laughing and smiling. I've never seen her had a bad day. She needs to share her secrets, but she is awesome. And she's always someone that I can go to kind of get that executive advice, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
I'm also going to limit mine, but I would shout out a lot of people. But first one is going to be Chelsea McKay. She is the music director at the middle school. She does choir and I think theater as well. She's my mentor, and I'm calling her every day and asking her so many questions since the first day. Even before the first day of school, I was asking her so many questions. But yeah, Chelsea McKay, I love her. Francesca Hughes is actually at the 9th grade academy. She is a Spanish teacher. She's first year to Romeo, but she's not a first year teacher. I'm always emailing her, calling her, texting her for Spanish advice. And I actually observed her in college. So I knew her before coming to Romeo, and then we met back up here in Romeo. So yeah, I couldn't have done it without Francesca. And then Leah is also a first-year teacher at the middle school. She is science. I'm always calling her as well with questions, and we'll figure it out together. And yeah. That's my shout outs.
You know, I've heard this analogy before about like a cord of 3 strands, and it's interesting how each of you have had like, there's a veteran teacher, mentor or not, that you've connected with. There's someone, you know, that's kind of more at your stage in the game, and then someone unique, you know, could be by proximity, shared a wall, you know, or something like that. So I just, like, I hear you talk about those people, and I know those people, and I'm grateful. Like, sometimes people student teach here and they tell me the people that they got to work with, and Vaso would be a perfect example.
Yeah.
And she told me the people that, and I'm like, you are so spoiled. Like, you understand, and she did fully, you know, but So I'm grateful, and I hope those people, hear this, because, we just don't, one of the things I don't think we do well in public education is affirm each other.
Yes.
And there's affirmations that come from the outside world and sometimes at different times of the year, but the pace of the work, I call it the circle of life and education. We're coming to the end, and there's this excitement for the end of the year in summer, and then it resets, and that anticipation of a new school year and that, and I always joke that, elementary teachers think of Halloween how high school teachers think of homecoming week. There's things that happen, they're fun, they're exhausting.
Yes.
We love them, but we love them to be over each year. And that's one of the neat things that you guys, now going back through a second time, you're going to get to maybe be a little bit more prepared, to just be a little bit more appreciative. But ultimately, those people who have impacted you, you've got a little bit of time left. And I would tell you, notes and emails are wonderful, but there's no substitute for just telling someone. And so please, those folks you've shared, make sure that you let them know that before the summer, because you'll fill their bucket up a little bit. So any last thoughts? A parting shot?
Go Bulldogs.
Go Bulldogs.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy your summer, because, the rest of the free world says, yeah, you don't even work all year. Well, they don't get it, because we need time, we need some time away. Kids need time away as well.
Yes.
Kids need that dedicated family time in the summer, and to get away from learning and recharge up, because it'll be year 2, and before you know it, you'll be on the Veteran Teacher podcast.
Hi.
So
I don't know about that just yet.
Yeah.
With the veteran.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Robinson, for hosting, and a special thank you to our guests. Up next will be another episode in our mental health and wellness series, this one focused on nutrition from the perspective of our food service director, Kristen Stewart. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week to keep up with Romeo Community Schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.